So if you've read Recommended or you've been on one of my workshops, you may well have heard me mention Leslie Everett before. Leslie is the author of a fantastic book called Walking Tall and a speaker on personal branding. And one of the things I recommend in the book, and I've talked about in many events and workshops, is the importance of managing your personal profile and understanding what you want people to say about you when you're not in the room. So one of the exercises I ask people to do is based on something that Leslie recommends, which is asking people what they think about you and what they say about you and what they know about you, which a lot of people find frightening. So people get put off by that, Leslie. Why is it so important?
Well, how we think we come across is very often very different to how other people perceive us. And unless we know how other people perceive us, we don't know how our brand is rippling out there. Everything people say about us ripples out to other people. We don't know how far. We don't know exactly what they say. And if we're creating confusing messages because we're not consistent with our brand, then we make it quite difficult for people to talk about us and recommend us in the right way. So we've got to take more control over what those perceptions actually are and think about what do I want, what do I bring to the table, what do I want to be known for, what's my legacy, what do I want to be famous for, and then we do everything that we can consistently in every form of communication to reinforce those messages about us. And then gradually what ripples out is a consistent brand message, and people talk about us in a way that we're much more in control of. And fact is today, unless we're visible, unless people remember us, unless people talk about us, we're never going to get to where we want to be and reach our goals in life. And that includes social media today as well. We have a reputation that builds outside of just face-to-face or voice-to-voice communication. People talk about us on social media, especially as speakers. If we have a profile, people talk about us on Twitter all the time. We've just got to manage as much as we possibly can what those perceptions are, and then we're managing our brand more effectively.
Okay, so some people might think, well, this is fine if you have a brand. You know, if you run your own company or are selling a business or a product or a service. But surely this is equally relevant for people who work in a corporate environment for their own career. So how would different people in different scenarios take your advice and use it in the best way for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I get your point. All of my work now pretty much is with big global organisations and with senior people or middle management up to boards of directors. And what I always tell people is you need to manage your career more like an entrepreneur than ever before. You've got to be visible. There was a survey a research study that Ellery Sampson did in her book called The Image Factor, and she looked at what are the 3 biggest factors in career progression today. And she found that it was only 10% down to doing your job well. Now, we know it's no longer good enough just to do a good job. If we don't do a good job, we're going to be out anyway. We've got to be recognised for what we do, and we've got to make sure people know what it is we're specifically good at, no longer good enough just to do that good job. 30% is down to attitude and behaviour when you do your job. So this is how you project your brand, how people perceive you, what your attitude is to what you do, your whole brand packaging, if you like. And then 60% is down to visibility and exposure. So it's a 90% thing. If we're not managing that 90%, our brand and how we are visible and how we get exposure with that, then it's no longer good enough to get us to where we want to be with our career goals and business goals. So this is becoming more and more important to senior executives today. Businesses need personalities behind them. People aren't prepared to do business with companies anymore that don't have a personality, that they don't know who it is behind. They don't know a bit about the CEO and the executive team. So it's becoming more and more important. I'm busier than ever working with people at that level to get their brand, their profile, their personality out there in line with what the corporation is trying to do.
Okay, so one last question. Do you recommend in that case to your executive clients within big corporates that they blog, that they tweet, and how should they engage with social media?
Yes, I do. I mean, obviously every company has a social media policy, so there are guidelines of what they are allowed to do. But most companies, I find now, want the executive team to have a presence on social media, have the LinkedIn profile there, but to tweet and have their own blogs, get their own individual comments out there in social media within the guidelines of what's needed. So I do encourage them to do that. I encourage them to have a blog. I even encourage them to write a book if they can, because everybody has a story, and that when you get to that that level particularly, there is always a thread of information that will help people in saying and getting in being successful themselves. So the work I do with executives is to get them to drill down into what it is they really do that makes them successful today. And if we can really pinpoint that, which often people can't pinpoint on their own, then we can make sure that that message is out there, and that's the message they can share on social media.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy.